A lot of people just think working with a financial advisor is all about just picking investments, right? But a great planning experience is much, much more than that. And today we're going to talk about that, right? What to expect and what it feels like to work with a good firm, from that first conversation to those ongoing guidance and meetings along the way. What can you expect and what should you expect from a good advisor? Welcome in. This is All Things Retirement. Ben George with Anthony Aulffo, certified financial planner, the founder of the Cardinal Wealth Group. And we're going to dig into the conversation a little bit about what it's like for you, Anthony, with the clients. I mean, we talked about, a little bit behind the scenes in our last video, which is a good one too, if you want to kind of know what's happening behind the scenes when you're not in the office with the Cardinal Wealth Group. But today, I just want to give people a better idea of what that process looks like altogether when you're working with a good financial advisor, because not every advisor is the same.
Yeah, no, that's right. There's different types, right? Some are going to be more product focused, and it might be focused on like investments or trying to sell a certain product or kind of wedge it in there, even when it might not be the best tool. So that's kind of really maybe more of a product salesman that's using even some planning software to kind of disguise it more as a sales proposal. Whereas a financial planner is going to be more focused on the financial planning aspect first, and then kind of work backwards into what types of investment solutions make the most sense based off of that. So, that's generally what I would say is like, analogy wise, would be like, you wouldn't go to the pharmacy before you go to the doctors.
Right.
You would normally go to the doctors and they're going to ask you a series of questions to get a better idea of some of the symptoms that you're having, to better diagnose what are the right solutions for you to go, to get the right medicine at the pharmacy for. So, we're generally going to start pretty wide with open-ended questions, where you've been, how you got here, why now, what's important to you, any roadblocks that you might be having. So it's very qualitative at first, and then we'll maybe get more into the financials of the qualitative information, like what do you have, who do you owe, income, investments, and all this stuff that they want to talk about. A lot of times they want to talk about investments right away, but we're not saying we don't want to do that. We want to make a good experience for them, but we often will say, let us kind of go through the process to kind of get back to it. We really want to peel back the onion to really understand how they got to where they're at. And then getting a sense of where they're headed if we keep doing the same thing, and then really understand how we can make it better with different types of strategies towards the end of the process. So it's a little bit different when you're talking more of a process or a planning oriented type of company first.
Yeah, it's about kind of establishing and building that relationship really before you worry about what the portfolio looks like, it sounds like. So, for those that begin this Cardinal success journey, right? And, you always offer the opportunity to get that free assessment and kind of figure out where you stand and kind of, start looking at the steps moving forward. But what does that client journey look like, say, from that very first conversation when somebody reaches out to you to the onboarding process?
Yeah, so I mean, we typically want to talk about having a mutually beneficial kind of discovery process, right? It's important for them to get a better sense, to know who we are, how we help people, any questions that they might have for us. But we also want to get a chance to get a better understanding of who they are, what's important to them. Like I said, it starts off really with more open-ended questions in terms of like what brought them here, what do they value or care about, things that are working from where they sit or not working, have they tried to fix it before in the past. So just really kind of, understanding who they are and what they care most about. And then just like, if you had a magic wand to make everything perfect, what would that look like? Really kind of help paint us a picture. And this is really before getting into like their financials of like, how much money do you have and how much are you saving and what's your budget? I mean, it just really helps to get a sense of their journey, because a lot of times we're just meeting them and they've been doing something for the last 10, 15, 20 years and doing it a certain way. So just get a better sense of understanding who they are. Are they, is this whole working with an advisor new? Or they maybe never really trusted anybody with their money. So before they pay us anything, we really want to go through this process that's usually, we say it doesn't cost you anything other than your time. It's a series of meetings that can range from maybe 2 to 4 meetings to really get a sense of who we are. And we just say no is perfectly fine. If we're not a fit, that's perfectly fine. Not everybody is going to join us just for doing going through this cardinal success journey as we coined it. And that's perfectly fine. Sometimes we're pointing them in a better direction. So it has to be, mutually beneficial from a relationship standpoint, because typically we're going to work a long time together. And, maybe our personalities aren't right, or maybe their situation is not the right fit for us. And that's perfectly fine. So that's, we want to make sure those synergies are there. And that's kind of more of that 3 to 4 meeting process that we're going through before we start then making recommendations, how we can provide value, what it's going to cost. And that's really kind of the journey in the beginning.
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot to figure out before the planning even begins. I think that's probably what maybe a lot of people misunderstand is they think any advisor will work with you, and hey, we come in, we start the planning process right away. But there's so much groundwork that needs to be established first before you move forward. I think that's what's important about having a successful relationship, but also a successful plan long term. So when that cardinal success journey starts, Anthony, what are those, I guess, kind of beginning meetings look like, and what are you focused on most during the onboarding?
Yeah, again, before we're getting into the investment, we know, like, part of the investment analysis or process, we're already kind of doing that from, say, the second meeting on. But that's just really to gain more information, to understand, how they're working, the investments are working. Is it a good fit from where they're at? But we really want to kind of start from like a cash flow standpoint, savings process, ways to be more efficient with the way that they're saving, to think about their distributions in the future with respects to requirement of distribution, ways to reduce their tax bill, looking at different pension or Social Security timing strategies, looking at their protection plan, right? They might be retiring in 5 or 10 years, but they could pass away tomorrow. So just looking for all the different gaps or risks that are within their financial plan. And then that really helps us to kind of work backwards into, what is the right investment mix or strategies that could make sense from a financial planning standpoint, like what type of rate of return do they need to be successful? But then also from a risk tolerance standpoint, we don't want them to lose sleep at night. And so we want to make sure that their risk tolerance and what's required of the financial plan are kind of merged together, where they meet in the right context for them, so that we're matching all these things up. So that's why we go through that financial planning process with them. We'll even talk about things like our paycheck system. So for folks getting closer to retirement, our paycheck system that we've talked about, where we have that safety bucket in case or when the market is going to be volatile again. We want to talk to them about this process, because most of the time it's not something that they heard much about, where we're putting typically somewhere between 5-7 years worth of the distributions that they need, that we're quantifying for them in their retirement plan, of how much is going to be needed from the portfolio. And we're putting that into a special bucket so that we are already proactively prepared for when the market does go down again. And we've had other episodes that we talked about why that's so important to keep them on track, but also to have a bucket of money not to pull from when the market's down. So that's, a series of meetings that we're having to really talk more about from a planning standpoint, really even before we're diving super into the investments, if they allow us to go through that process, of course.
Yeah. I think, look, it's a bit of a red flag if the advisor is just trying to really push what they're doing all the time versus learning more about your situation, what your goals are, your issues, your concerns. All those things go into that planning process, and it's all about you. It should be all about you, right? It's your money, it's your future. It should be about you and not about that advisor. So you can kind of get a better understanding of how that works there. So, all right, once we've got people onboarded, Anthony, you're not meeting all the time, right? So what does that communication look like, and what role does that communication play in the process throughout the year when you're not always meeting with people?
Yeah, so we say, it's one of the things that we highlight before people on board with us is like, what's the relationship look like? And we typically say it's generally 2 to 3 meetings that are scheduled throughout the year. We'll reach out to them to say it's time to schedule your review meeting, and we have at least 2, if not 3, of those scheduled, no matter what, where we're reaching out. And then we always say that any number of impromptus that could be needed on your end, feel free to reach out anytime, or we're going to reach out to you at times where we feel the need to reach out about something. It could be a policy change or something that happened in the market. But having those 2 to 3 standing meetings a year usually takes care of the heavy lifting. And from those meetings, there could be like little mini sprint meetings where like we need 20 or 30 minutes as a follow-up to drill down to get something across the finish line, like your estate plan, rolling over an account, updating beneficiaries, and things like that. So that's kind of the meeting standpoint. And then just kind of keeping people abreast as to what's going on in the world. We have a weekly newsletter where we send that out weekly on what's going on in the world, how it's affecting maybe investments or taxes or whatever, anything really under the financial planning umbrella. And then the last thing that I would say is that we have our Cardinal roadmap. And so after every meeting, it's really a summary of what we talked about and a summary of what are the next steps that we want to get done to kind of keep them organized, but also to keep us organized. So we provide them access to their financial planning website that we create for them. And we also email it to them after every meeting. Sometimes we'll even send a video or an additional email to kind of really keep them organized, say this is exactly what we need to do, next steps to really make progress in their financial plan. We want them to look back after every year and say, man, I'm really glad that we had them because we got X, Y, and Z done. It would have been difficult for us to get it where we're at today without them. Many years there's a lot of stuff to do, and some years it's not as much to do, but life changes for people. It creates new opportunities to do things, or policy changes as well. So that's really kind of the gist of what a day-to-day is. And it certainly keeps us very, very busy.
Yeah, it does. And again, you can go back into the process of what's happening behind the scenes in a previous video as well. We kind of dig into that. So you can get a really good picture of what's happening at Cardinal Wealth Group and how they're working to serve their clients. And again, you can begin that process now. Just reach out, cardinalwg.com. What do you have to have ready, Anthony, for anyone that is getting close to retirement, ready to begin that process, or at least have a conversation with you to kind of get a better feel of if they're a good fit to work with you? What do you need to have kind of prepared going into that first meeting?
Honestly, we just say, just show up and let's have a conversation and let's start there. You don't need to have any specific documents ready. Let's just talk about where you're at, what's important to you. And, then we can talk about what are the next steps to really get into that Cardinal success journey, where we'll give them, a list of the main documents that we typically need or information that we'll get from them at the meeting to get them kind of started on that process. But we always say, don't feel like you need to have anything prepared. Let's just talk.
There you go. We've been in that conversation now. Go to cardinalwg.com. You'll see the free assessment button in the top right corner. Click on that and begin that process. Again, if you're ready to begin thinking about retirement and taking those next steps and you're ready to work with someone, Cardinal Wealth Group is a great option. And again, you can find out if you're a good fit by starting that Cardinal success journey and taking that free assessment. So hopefully this gives you a better idea of what's happening inside the office there with Anthony and the team at Cardinal Wealth Group. But we appreciate you watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done that already. We'll talk to you again soon. This has been All Things Retirement. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Ben.
Information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Please consult a qualified professional before taking any action.